Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year again. This is Susan Clinton, one of your co hosts for Tough to Treat. This is going to be podcast number 195. And instead of doing a long one, Eric has been on vacation. So we're actually going to run part two of Taking Back Your Mental Fitness. So there's no interruptions in between. And I think you'll enjoy this podcast. We got a great response from the first one that was aired last week. So hopefully you will get the second half of the story today and enjoy the podcast. Thank you very much. So how does this work? So there's parts to rebuild the neuroplasticity from the recipe. All right, so I'm going to kind of go through this. I think this is a brilliant analogy. And I give all credit to Lorimer Mosley and David Butler, and her last name is Stanton, Dr. Stanton, a bunch of stuff that they've done on OA and pain. But anyway, so when we think about what we've got going on here, we're going to start with the analogy of bread, like a loaf of bread. If I draw a triangle and I connect the dots, there's three things that can go into doing bread, all right? There's flour, there's water, and there's yeast. All of these things can stand alone, but only together are they going to make the loaf of bread. So we can't just do flour and yeast because there's no liquid. We can't do flour and water because that's just going to turn into a paste. And we can't do yeast and water because that's going to lend us nothing except maybe a little fermentation of the yeast. But it's not going to bring us a loaf of bread. So when we go here, let me take that. I'm going to get rid of the bread. And then let's put it in the terms of PQ here. And let's consider there are three domains to do this. The first one is we have to intercept. We have to intercept the judge and the saboteurs. We have to know their voice. We have to know that that is their voice, and we have to call them out. We do not make friends with our judge and our saboteurs. They're not interested in being friends. They're interested in control and winning. If they're present in the conversation that you're having with somebody, it's going to trigger the other person's judge and saboteurs. Think about mirror neurons, right? What goes around comes around. If you smile, eventually a lot of people kind of start smiling. Think about how contagious laughter is. When you hear somebody laughing just uncontrollably, like laughing out loud, everybody kind of like gets into it a little bit. So when we hear people yelling and, being angry or grinding their teeth, it begins to, there's that contagion. So we want to intercept the judge and the saboteurs. That's number one. All right. And number two is what we call the PQ reps. But we're going to talk about number two for just a second, because PQ reps are nothing but intentional mindfulness. In positive intelligence, we use the type of mindfulness that's of the five senses. So smelling and seeing and hearing and tasting and touching. We want to amplify those senses. And it takes 10. So each PQ rep is 10 seconds long. All right. So take your fingertips together right now, everybody, and rub them together slowly with such intention that you feel every crevice, the temperature, the moisture, all the ridges of the fingertips. That's a tactile PQ rep. Basically, somebody named this for me when I talked about it. It's the mindfulness of the mundane. It's taking an everyday mundane task and really putting sensory attention on it. Here's another one. Wherever you are, look at what's in front of you. Find an object in front of you and look at it with such clarity that you see the differences in colors, that you see the shading, that you see shadows, that you see differences in textures, that you see different light shining on it. That's when using a visual technique. You can do that taking a look at somebody's eyebrow. So if you're getting hijacked in the middle of a treatment session with a client, you can like You don't have to stop and do anything different. You can just like, I can notice the picture behind them and notice this and still stay present in the moment. So this is the kind of the work this is. So there's, listening to something furthest away or closer to you is another example. Where are you sitting on your chair or your stool, and what do you feel? Can you find all 10 of your toes by gently wiggling them while you're talking to somebody? My go-to thing is both of my hands together. Works so well for me. I really am attracted to it. We all have our favorite type of PQ reps, but we're going to actually practice them here in a minute. Now, the reason that I have this, I'm bringing this up is because PQ is so intercept is the yeast, right? Nothing's going to happen without yeast. We can't ferment this flour in the water without yeast, right? So that's the intercept. That's like what the intercept the judge. We aren't going anywhere in Sage unless we intercept that judge. It's not going to happen. Or it's not going to happen in a way that's going to give us the best optimal neuroplasticity. So mindfulness is great. Mindfulness alone, just doing a mindful practice is wonderful, right? Doing a meditation practice is absolutely fantastic. But if it's done in isolation, we're not going to get a loaf of bread. We're going to get some changes in neural pathways, but we're not going to have an operating system that's going to allow us to use it in the moment when we actually need it. And that's what the positive intelligence work does. We intercept and call out that judge and saboteurs. We say, that's your voice, stop. And we go right into boosting our command muscle, which is PQ repping. You get 10 seconds for each rep. I mean, each rep is 10 seconds long. You only have to do 4 minutes of that every day for 6 weeks to change your neural pathways. So this is meant to be done by busy people in the middle of their busy lives. This isn't a program that you pick up because you have plenty of time to do it. This is in the moment. It's short, it's quick. In the clinic with healthcare workers, one of the easiest things is the hand sanitizer or the hand washing. Wash your hands with such attention that you can feel the water and the soap and it's sliding and how it feels and everything, how the ridges on your hands feel. And, it's just beautiful. It's right there. It's accessible. Shut the door. 10 seconds of just feeling your breath in your body counts as a PQ rep. So it's really accessible and available all day long. It's just like I said, it's mindfulness of the mundane, but first you got to call that out though. Walk out of a room and say, oh my gosh, I'm hijacked. Okay, shut up, judge. I'm just going to breathe here for a few seconds. Be quiet, judge. I'm just going to breathe here for a couple of seconds. Okay, now I can move on, wash my hands. I'm really going to PQ rep with my hands. But right then and there, you've done something immediately to start to change that neural pathway, to not go down the side where the judge and saboteurs live, but to go down the other side into the sage brain. Which brings us to number 3. So this becomes the flower. There's plenty of, this is the water. Because water, we always need water, but in this instance, we need the water to build the loaf of bread, right? So mindfulness is like water, doing self-compassion exercises is like water. Meditation is water, PQ reps is water. But when you put them in this context, now we have a recipe for rebuilding. Instead of building a loaf of bread, we're building a neural pathway. So number 3 is going to be our flower, which is going to be the sage powers. And building and exercising those sage powers and learning what they are and how they work. So there's, in a loaf of bread, there's many kinds of flour that you can use. You can use regular flour, you can use gluten-free flour, you can use almond flour, you can use wheat flour, you can use white flour. And the sage power, so there's 5 different sage powers. And there's 6 if you look at the sage perspective. And the sage perspective says, I can find a gift or opportunity in everything that comes up in my life. I may not see it right at the moment, but there is always a gift or an opportunity in what is being presented, whether it's something bad or something good. And in the book, Shazad tells a story of the white stallion. All these different things happen to this farmer and his white stallion. And in the whole story is all the people in the town react like, oh, that's a bad thing. Oh, that's a good thing. Oh, it's a bad thing. Oh, it's a good thing. And in the end, it was a gift and opportunity at every moment, whether it was bad or good. And, so that's what the sage powers do. So that's the sage perspective. And then the powers are things like sage empathize, sage activate, innovate, discover. There's all these beautiful powers that we have in there that different situations will call for different ones. So we need different kinds of flour to go into this recipe. And remember, what we're building here is a neural pathway and access into that so that we can increase the gray matter in that prefrontal cortex and decrease the gray matter in that brainstem limbic system survival brain type of piece. We need it. It will never leave us, but it does not have to rule the world. So that's kind of the gist behind why we do the work that we do. Intercept, do the PQ reps, move into sage, and sagely discern what needs to occur. And the first power of sage that we cultivate is a self-empathy, and empathy for the situation and empathy for others, because you will quickly learn and find out that the most difficult people are the ones that are hijacked by their own sage and saboteurs. And the best way to work with them is to get yourself in sage. And get yourself in sage and get yourself in sage and know that they're there to help you grow. So, but that's the gist of that part there. So let me close that. And I'm just going to say at this point, any questions? Because we're going to go through a quick practice next. Okay. So what I want you to do is I'd like for you to open your piece of paper or your document or whatever you created with that one thing that you don't want anyone to know. And I will kindly and sagely introduce you to the voice of your judge. Because what you have written down or put down, that is the voice of your judge. Know that so that you recognize it so you can call it out. It's not the truth. It's the lies, regrets. Those are all, all of that is the lies of the judge. So you attached an emotion to it. Right now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense is that emotion when you look at that and you hear that voice of the judge? Just go ahead and give it a score. Okay, so we're going to do, now let's make a shift into sage because that's where we are. And we're going to just activate one part of the sage empathize power tonight. In your mind, I want you to picture a picture of yourself as a child. Just picture that little person, see their eyes, see their hair, see what they're wearing. This is you. This is a child. This is you as a child. This is your true essence of who you are. This is your sacred sage self. Without the coverings, without the masking. This is who this is. If it's possible, allow yourself to love that child as that child deserves to be loved. Unconditionally, gratefully, cherish them inside you. That child is you. Good. And whenever you're ready, just come back to the room. Now has the emotion scale shifted again? And that's the power of the 3 rungs or the 3 legs to the stool. The stool won't stand on 2 legs. It stands on 3. We can't make a loaf of bread without the 3 ingredients. We can't build a neural pathway without the 3 muscles. Intercept muscle, boost the command muscle, sage power muscle. Beautiful work. Okay. So, if anybody has anything they want to throw into the chat and say, that's great. If you want to come on and ask a question or add anything, feel free to do so. I leave it up to you. But yes, it's the book is great. Positive Intelligence. You just Google it. It comes up right on Amazon. I'll send the link to the book as well. And there's the Positive Intelligent website has the program and the saboteur assessment and everything on there. So I'll send that off to you all so you have it. And then next steps, work with me. Come work with me. Let me take you through the program. And I've got special pricing for the people who have committed and come into this. And I will send that out as well. So that everybody has a copy of that. I'm planning on taking a pod through in mid-October, 1st to mid-October. The 6 weeks program always starts on a Saturday. I'd like to have at least 3 or 4 people to do a pod. If you really feel strongly that you want to do it by yourself, that's fine too. So it just works really nice in pods because you're not alone. You got other people that are doing the same thing and same challenges and things like that. And the pods work nicely. I've got a pod that just finished up and they are just beside themselves how happy they are with what they've done and what they're doing moving forward. So lots of ways to work with me. You can also hop on a discovery call with me or just email me, Susan at ltiphysio.com, and just tell me you want to hop on a discovery call and talk about the program or how you want to make it work for you or what you might feel like your next step should be. Thank you for spending your Tuesday evening with me. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you found at least the idea of how this can work, almost immediately, just from, if you do nothing else, just practice what we practiced tonight. And, just keep calling out that judge's voice and the saboteur's voice and allow yourself to intercept that. Do some mindful work of your choosing. Try to make it centered around the 5 senses. And then switch yourself over to just work on the self-empathy, self-compassion piece there to just kind of round out and start building that neural pathway for yourself.